People start coming down for sightseeing, and emergency vehicles have to get through, so stay out of downtown.
TV9's Josh Hinkle reporting. Thank you very much, Josh. And also, kind of one note along that, as we've seen when he was talking about people being allowed to be in from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's for business owners or employees, people with proper credentialing. You will need that because you will be escorted to where you have to go throughout wherever your business is that is accessible by the skywalk. So you do have to have a proper reason and have the credentials, identification, what have you, to be able to get in.
An urgent notice from the city of Coralville now, no more bus service, and obviously that is a sign of the fact that the water is rising. Yep. They had previously changed up their routes, but now no more buses are going to run. So obviously that's a sure sign of things to come. I know
an issue we did want to touch on, though, water conservation.
Right.
Within here in Cedar Rapids, because that has become a big deal, especially over the past 48 hours, as we've been seeing all the water rushing through downtown, through Time Check, through the Czech Village, through Osborne Park, through the various neighborhoods between downtown and the outlying areas.
Right, and so here are some things that you can do to save on water tips. They are asking, and this has really been the message for the past, I'd say, 24 to 48 hours, here in Cedar Rapids. Only use water if you're going to drink it. I mean, that is the only thing you should be consuming water for. Don't do dishes. Use paper plates, and even something so simple. We had talked to a hand washing expert, I remember, a couple of weeks ago on the kcrg TV9 News at midday about hand washing and what you should do.
Yes.
Well, he says if you can see visible dirt on your hands, at this point, try and get as much of that off as possible, and then that hand sanitizer should kill all the bacteria. Use hand sanitizer, not water and soap. Hand sanitizer to wash your hands.
And when you're seeing some other aspects of this, also paper plates as well. Now, this is what they ask you not to do. Do not run a dishwasher or operate a washing machine, wash cars, or flush toilets after each use. And
I took a call from a woman this morning talking about washing machines. She worked at a hotel, and she said what they had done, at least for those that were continuing to stay overnight, is just they're not washing sheets. But she said at some point there were some things they did wash at that hotel. Specifically, she wouldn't tell me which one it was, but obviously that's going to be an issue as soon as they decide, to do something about the water situation. We were having to massively conserve because that plant was only operating 25% of capacity. I know yesterday my fiance and I went to Target to try and get as much water as we could, but on the way there we saw the fire truck hooked up right on the edge of the city of Marion and the city of Cedar Rapids, pumping water back and forth, obviously taking water from the city of Marion to the city of Cedar Rapids to help out with this problem that we're seeing.
All the water jugs were out by the time I hit the roads with my kid about 5 p.m., kind of looking for whatever we could stock up on, at least just in preparation, because there is not a ban on using water yet. But I have seen people mowing lawns, or not mowing lawns, but watering lawns. We have seen...
Cut back on that if you can. It's just essential.
We have seen some restaurants that are operating, and we have gotten plenty of phone calls from people who have been asking why certain businesses, which are heavy on water, are operating. Again, there is no official ban, but they are asking people to seriously cut back and conserve as much water as they can, because every little bit really is needed. And we're having to do that here because, well, we've got our own technical issues right now here because we've been running on a generator for 48 hours.
Porta potties are the way to go for us here at TV9.
And everything else. But because anyone is within the mandatory evacuation area, as we are right now, everybody's is forced to cut back because that's just kind of the way it is. And there so many people have been affected throughout this. So whatever you can do, even if it's just cutting back a little bit on water, will be appreciated by the city and especially all the people who are affected.
And no doubt we'll get an update on that as well, as where they're planning to hold a press conference today at 10 o'clock to no doubt discuss water and
where everything is at
right
safety.
Now.
Because we need all the constant updates, because yesterday they were first breaking out some of the first monetary estimates for maybe what the damage has done, and you think of almost $800 million. I mean, it's unfathomable. It really is.
Right. Okay, let's talk a little bit now about, obviously we're probably going to see a lot more people needing shelter. These shelters still open, and people leaving their homes in Iowa City, Coralville, there's a shelter there as well, but you may consider going to these farther north shelters. You might have to take a detour to get there, but if you're thinking about it long term, you might be displaced for quite a while. And some of these shelters obviously have space up in Black Hawk County at UNI, for instance, the West Gym. Benton County in Vinton, the Iowa Braille and Sight Saving School is still open as a shelter as well.
And from what we've seen, also Bremer County, Wartburg College, that's at the Waverly Sports and Wellness Center. They're on Wartburg Boulevard. And just as a side note, the Cedar there is expected to crest tonight at about 15 feet up in Waverly, but elsewhere down from the Cedar, it seems to be going down. For Johnson County, which, of course, really the worst may be coming very soon with an expected crest on Tuesday. If you do need shelter, the Red Cross will be working at the Johnson County Fairgrounds. That's at 4261 Oak Crest Hill Road Southeast, Building A in Iowa City.
And we also have in Lynn County in Cedar Rapids, the Viola Gibson Elementary School, that also open as a shelter, and Prairie High School also open as a shelter. And, you know, we've gotten a lot of calls from people looking to see if these people need any help. And, of course, to any of you at the shelters watching, if you need things, let us know here at TV9, because we can put the word out to volunteers and people who want to donate things. Obviously, in Tama County, we saw some pictures of the flooding over Highway 30 there. And obviously you're seeing kind of what it looks like for these people that are displaced from their homes. This is what you have to go to. I mean, you literally lose the comfort, but obviously all of those things, probably donated items, piles of clothing, games for kids, shoes, underwear, and you know, all of this for kids too, because obviously when you have to take your kids from your home, I can only imagine what that's like for those young children being completely displaced.
I have two little kids, 5 and 3. I mean, we've been lucky, we've been blessed in that we have not had to go to this, but I cannot imagine what you would have to do in a situation like that, because it is a lot of work. I mean, to be able to displace a child, not just yourself, you know, a child who may not be able to comprehend everything out of this. So please keep all the generosity coming all throughout eastern Iowa. It has been truly amazing on your ends as well. Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about, you know, obviously these floodwaters we've been mentioning, there's a lot of dangerous things in them. You can get a tetanus shot at these locations today. 6911 C Avenue Northeast, that's St. Luke's Urgent Care Centers. Also one at 2375 Edgewood Road Southeast. Edgewood Road, actually, that should be southwest, I believe. Again, those are from today to tomorrow, 9 till 2. And if you can't remember the last time you had one.
That's what it is, isn't it, Ashley? Yeah.
I was actually trying to think the last time I had one. I think it was in 2004. I hope it's still good.
Yes.
I might have to go get one. But
and you've seen just how the floodwaters are. I mean, we've seen the fish here coming up in the railroads. We've seen dumpsters. We've seen debris. We've seen everything. If you've come in contact with it, also if you, as well in Cedar Falls, you can go to the North Cedar School. If you have come in contact with the water, do consider going in to get a tetanus vaccination.
All right. We're now going to go to Doug Newman, who is from the Cedar Rapids Downtown District. We were telling you earlier that people were going to be allowed into the skywalks for business use. Doug, can you hear us? Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
So what's the gist of, I mean, we've kind of been talking with Josh a little bit about this morning as he's out there. Tell us exactly who needs to come back to their offices, who should stay away.
Anybody who can get to their office through the skywalk system and is above the water level is welcome to come try. And I want to make sure that people understand that even there's no guarantee. We may run across some structural issues where there could be some potential danger. We're not sure we're going to have access to everywhere. We're going to bring a structural engineer in at 10 o'clock and make a walkthrough with us and try to determine which areas we can get to. And then the window is from 11 to 3.
Okay.
Today we'll have National Guard escorts there for people. And to areas that we can get to safely, we'll let some people get in to try to get some essential equipment.
And they can park at the U.S. Cellular Parkade, correct?
Say that again?
And they can park at the U.S. Cellular parking ramp, correct?
Right. That's where we will be meeting. Kind of the Chamber of Commerce area, U.S. Cellular Parkade. We'll get into the skywalk there, stay out of the water, stay safe, and be able to get some access to some places.
We're just looking at some video, Doug, for a reference point of, you know, the first level of Merrill Lynch, you know, obviously an investment financial firm downtown, and a lot of these businesses missing their essentials, obviously. It's hard to put business on hold this long, isn't it? Have you talked to people about this?
Then that's exactly the reason for trying to set this up today. There's some businesses that are on upper floors that they know they have safe equipment, they just didn't have a chance to get it, didn't know they'd be out that long. We're hoping that by giving them this limited access, they can be productive, get some workers back to work. Think about the nature of some of these businesses will be critical to flood recovery. The technology businesses we have, financial advisors, banks, insurance companies, these types of companies, if they can get a computer server, some critical records, whatever it might be, that allow them to get workers back up and working, helping the economy, helping the recovery. That's important to the overall recovery, and that's what we want to try to accomplish today.
Have you heard anything about, we've talked to somebody about flood insurance. Are most of these businesses covered, or have you heard anything about that? I mean, in terms of damage?
That I haven't been asking them about that.
Okay.
That's still another step of the recovery. I have heard some of the media coverage about that. I know that's going to be a big issue that people are looking at individually, but we've been worried about kind of the more mass issues right now.
Okay.
And also, just to reconfirm it, 11 to 3 today. They can meet at the U.S. Cellular Parkade down there, and for proper identification to prove that they actually do work in the businesses is also required. Correct, Doug?
Right. We need to be real careful here from a safety perspective, from a theft perspective, and everything else. So there'll be Chamber and Downtown District people there.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
We're going to know a lot of these people, so but bring some identification. We're going to be careful about who we let in, and we're also going to have National Guard escorts there. Just concerned about the safety, and we don't want anybody pushing the envelope. I know there's people underwater that are real tempted to get in and have a look, and we just can't go there yet.
Right.
But for places that are safe, places that are dry, places that they know they have equipment that can really help them get back up and running, if we have an opportunity to get you there today, we want to get you there today.
All right, Doug Newman from the Downtown District. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go here, Doug?
Nope. You guys are doing a great job. Keep up the work getting out the information.
All right, and ditto to you. Thanks, Doug.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Now let's go now to KCRG TV9's Mark Gary. He's been on the scene earlier in Coralville and now in Iowa City, where he's been for about the last hour and a half, bringing us the very latest from down there as he's over the Iowa River. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Chris. We are here actually kind of next to the river at this point. We've moved a little bit next to the Iowa River, right near the Iowa Avenue Bridge. And I'm here with one of the engineers who has been helping inspect these bridges for the past 2 days or so. Her name is Jane Driscoll. She works with VJ Engineering. You've had a couple long nights. How's it been doing all this extended work?
It is long nights, but we have a great team of people that are helping us out. We have someone at every bridge here in Iowa City, and they're reporting in, checking river elevations, walking the bridge to make sure that we're not having any shifting, any cracking, or any sort of unusual symptoms. And the city has been doing a great job too, and the county and the university, they're all working together and trying to ascertain the situation and keep the public as safe as possible.
How exactly are you inspecting these bridges? Because, you know, to the average person walking by, they just see there's a whole lot of water going by really fast underneath it.
Sure. We are like I said, we walk in the bridges, but most specifically we're looking around the ends of the bridge, the abutments, and the piers to watch for scour. Now, scour occurs when you have moving water at a reasonable velocity, which we're getting high velocities now. And it encroaches on the piers or the ends of the bridge, and the water tries to find the path of least resistance, and sometimes that's going through the soil, and so it may actually work its way around the back of the bridge and may actually undermine the roadway before it really damages the bridge. Although you will have scour underneath the water that we just can't see into the foundation of the bridge too.
So in essence, the water's kind of swirling around where the bridges are anchored into the river, and it's kind of knocking out the foundation.
It removes the soil around the foundation. Now the foundation is driven deep enough into the ground that the bridge in general should be okay. But there is opportunity then for the scour to actually undermine what we have anchored the bridge on, yes.
And what are we seeing back here? This is the Iowa Avenue Bridge, and we can see kind of the water that's pooled up back there underneath it. I think we can zoom in and see that. Can you kind of describe to us what's happening right there?
Sure. The river's coming in on the left side there, and there's a pedestrian walkway underneath the bridge here, and we probably have over 3 feet of water underneath there, and you can see the water moving. And as it's moving around, if it was on dirt, then it would be causing scour and wanting to pull the soil away. The vegetation helps, but eventually the water will become so strong that it can actually cut the bank loose and the soil slide off into the water. And that's when the water just sort of eats away at that and tries to get around the end of the bridge over to the right there. And that's really what we're watching for in this case.
And the first bridge that you had real problems with was the Park Road Bridge. And you said there was kind of an interesting situation there. You had to actually drill holes in the top of the bridge. And I bet some people gave you some funny looks when they saw you drilling holes in the bridge. Why did you have to do that?
Well, one of the problems that you have when the water comes up is it traps air underneath the structure. And if that air can't get out, then it develops a cushion, and it can actually serve to help float the bridge up and off of its supports. So what we did is we figured out exactly where we needed to release that air and drilled holes in the bridge. And as the water came up, we could actually put our hand over the hole and feel the air forcing its way out from underneath the bridge. Now the Park Road Bridge now, probably the majority of the air is just about out because the water is up to about the top of the deck right now. The sidewalk on that bridge is actually up 6 more inches, so it kind of keeps the water from actually getting onto the center of the bridge. But at Park Road, it's wrapping around the east and west abutments over the road and then spilling back a little bit on the bridge. So our biggest concern there is now that we're getting debris and everything from upstream is the lateral load on the bridge. It's want to push the bridge downstream. And so we're keeping a close eye on that. So
is there any kind of a risk that the water pressure or all these forces could actually knock the bridge off or the top of the bridge off of kind of the stands and supports it's on?
Well, that's a realistic potential. We've been watching that very closely. Our people are not on the bridge anymore, mostly because the water is so high. And once it starts to try to overtop the deck, the pressure increases too as well because there's so much debris catching on the railing and just increasing that force, that downstream force.
And on the Iowa Avenue Bridge, this has been closed all morning since we've been here. And we're still seeing people, cars can't get through because they've completely blocked it off. It's not possible to drive through here. But people are still walking across and they're riding their bikes across. And what kind of a message you have for people who are doing things like that? Because this bridge, it's not stable.
Well, this particular bridge at Iowa Avenue, actually it was closed because there's water over the roadway on the east side. So there are people coming down and walking around and driving around, and it's best to limit how close you're getting to the bridge. Again, we have that scour situation, and when that's happening, you can't always see it from the surface. So there might be a hidden danger there. But if people can just kind of appreciate the magnitude of this situation and not try to resist the temptation to be walking around on the structures, that would be a big help for us.
And how concerned are you that we're going to see something here similar in Iowa City to what we've seen in Cedar Rapids, where the water just rushed over all of the bridges in the downtown area except the 380 bridge, of course? I mean, do you see that as a real possibility here?
We have several models, and they show that predicting that we're going to get another 4-foot rise, and at that point we will be overtopping some of the structures, definitely be putting them at risk.
Thank you. That's Jane Driscoll from VJ Engineering, working out here with a team of other engineers around the clock. Some of them are actually sleeping on the floor of their office for a few hours a night, and that's all the sleep they're getting here. Just trying to keep all of these bridges safe, and they're having to close some of them down. Now, right now, they still do have the Burlington Bridge open at this point and the Benton Bridge, but all the other bridges going through the downtown area are closed simply because the water that's rushing through here is making it a very unsafe situation. Chris and Ashley?
It's Mark Geary reporting live from Iowa City. And it's good to see and good to hear the explanation, because that's why when water traps the air under a bridge, that's why you have bridges bursting, as we saw in all those pictures that Joe Winters brought us not too long ago. Also, another note from Coralville and Iowa City. Buses in Coralville are now not running. All of the routes have been canceled.
All right, and let's go now to TV9's Josh Hinkle, who's kind of been out on the streets of Cedar Rapids this morning. And Josh, we just got off the phone a couple minutes ago with Doug Newman from the downtown district, and they're allowing those people into the Skywalk's businesses. You want to talk a little bit more about that with us?
Right. Well, police have been saying it's too unsafe to go downtown because of the current still in the water, but the Skywalks were never actually breached by water. The water actually never reached that. So they are letting the people that work in businesses or own businesses that are accessible by the skywalks, obviously up in the air, to go back there. If we can roll that full screen, we can show you exactly what time we're supposed to be there, 11 to 3. Anytime between then, business owners can show up at the Chamber of Commerce over by the U.S. Cellular Parkade. That's where they're going to start letting people in. If you do have questions, you can call Doug Newman at the Downtown District at 319-210-2692. Again, that's from 11 to 3 today only, until police say it's safe for anyone else to go back into downtown, but that might be quite a while. If we can roll some video, this is the freshest video we have coming up about this is actually last night, a boat tour through downtown. You can actually see exactly how deep things are down there. In some places, it's 8 to 12 feet, so, I mean, it's well over the first floor. No way you can access a lot of those businesses down there, including, like, the library, science station, the federal courthouse, any of those places. And police say it might be days, weeks before a lot of these places are completely safe to go into, and certainly several days before you can even go up to it. The water is receding, though, at a pretty rapid pace. I mean, it's gone down about a half block in about 10 hours, so things are looking up in downtown.
But still, if you're in one of those businesses on 1st Street, 2nd Street, and even just a half of a foot, if it's gone down that, you still have many, many, many more feet to go because of just how deep it was, covering an entire first floor in some cases.
Exactly, and just wait for the go-ahead to go back in there, because it is unsafe. I mean, being down there this close to it this morning, you can just see how the current is going, and the way the water comes in waves, and then it gets sucked back down into the storm drains. That could be you. That could, if you're walking through there, it could very well suck you back down into the storm drain or out into the major part of the river.
Right. They've talked a lot about the manhole covers. Obviously, were forced off when all the floodwater started coming in and the storm sewer started backing up, and those are just big holes, basically, that head straight down into the sewer system. So obviously, a very dangerous thing as well. We were talking a little bit about, they need to check the structures and make sure they're safe, but just a testament to how serious they are. Only people are being escorted by National Guard and Cedar Rapids Police.
Yeah, and they're also bringing in like a structural engineer to make sure that those skywalks are safe before they're letting people walk across them, because the water was below it and very well could have, moved some things around or made some things unstable below it. So they're just making sure it's as safe as possible before they let those business people back there.
Now, I remember being out on Tuesday and Wednesday morning throughout downtown. There were plenty of water crews, everybody working to try to prevent, or at least working throughout the manholes and the sewer system. From what you were out today and you saw, is it pretty empty down there, just kind of waiting it out right now?
Yeah, I mean, they have a few crews out downtown kind of looking at things, trying to see what is safe to be where and when you can be there. But as far as everything else, they've got the whole downtown shut off by National Guard and police tape, big National Guard trucks that you can very clearly see at least 2 blocks away from where the water's at right now. And that's where they want people to stay, because they don't want people to come downtown and get past that rope. I've seen people escorted back this morning by National Guard saying it's not, you have to come back, it's not safe, because they don't want people to go past the area because they don't yet know what exactly has happened. I mean, things have moved around and
covered by water.
Exactly. I mean, we went down there for a boat tour on I guess it was Thursday, and there were huge items floating around downtown. Like cars were floating around, dumpsters were floating around, couches, chairs, refrigerators. It's just ridiculous. And I mean, you never know where one of those is going to show up, and you start walking down in the water. That's just not a good idea. They say, don't drive, don't walk, don't swim in it.
What's going to be interesting to see is, in the coming days, as this water goes down and back into the beds of the Cedar River, where things land, you're going to see, like you were mentioning, those appliances from homes, probably who knows where they came from, on the other side of the river, could be. They're floating around so much that you're going to see those things just land in the middle of streets in downtown Cedar Rapids, and it really will look like a war zone if it doesn't already.
And some of the stuff that's left behind from the river it was quite striking to me. I mean, we were on the railroad in between 4th and 5th, or 3rd and 5th streets, and all those fish that were just stuck in the railroad ties was ridiculous.
I mean, just think of some of the other businesses. Anyone who's ever worked in a restaurant, you know, whatever goes in the dumpster in the back. I mean, it's
Not
you think
good
of,
stuff.
Well, you think of between all the communities that have been affected, you know, multiply that by however many you have to, and that really makes up the content and the contamination of the water that we all see.
You know, the water's finally gone down to the point where I was able to walk up to, you know, the first two businesses there on 2nd Avenue. I guess it was Volume Nightclub and then Bricks, the bar there. And you can see inside there, and there is puddles of water. There are puddles of water standing on the ground, but luckily they had moved most of their furniture up, so it looks like it's a lot of what was happening on the floor. The next closest building I was barely able to get to was where the U.S. Cellular Center, or excuse me, the U.S. Bank parking garage was, and it kind of goes down, and you can see that water is completely in the bottom part of that garage. So, I mean, it's going to take a while for the rest of this stuff to go down, but stay away from downtown for sure.
Some good advice. TV9's Josh Hinkle, thanks for joining us, and of course we'll check in again with you in just a few minutes. We want to go now to look at some shelters. We had word that there was another shelter available in Cedar Rapids that we had failed to mention earlier that's accepting animals, and that is the United Methodist Church. The new, gosh, what
New
was that?
Creations United Methodist. That's actually very close to the Target. It's on the southwest side of town.
Okay, and they do allow pets there, so keep in mind this is at 3715 33rd Avenue Southwest. That shelter allowing pets as well. Prairie High School, I don't believe they allow pets. No pets at Prairie, but they are a shelter, and Viola Gibson Elementary School is still a shelter, a Red Cross shelter as well in Cedar Rapids. And, you know, we were talking about this yesterday. The floodwaters forced, you know, agencies trying to help people like the Salvation Army up and out of their building because the floodwaters reached that far. I don't think anybody, you know, this is one of those times when you can look back now that the waters are starting to go back. You can look back and say, we didn't think it would go there. And I think a lot of people have said that, you know, they did not think that the water would go that high.
Yeah, and I know there's also been a bit of concern. We have gotten some emails and some phone calls about mail delivery throughout Cedar Rapids for the United States Post Office.
And I do believe we have some information for you on that. I know yesterday they were trying to, you know, say, well, you can go pick up your mail because they were going to stop delivery. It's not safe for those people. You just need to take your ID with you. And I think they were asking people to wait until the afternoons to go pick up mail. But here are the places that you can go in Cedar Rapids.
So if you have a zip code that's 52404, or if it ends in 05, just go to the West Station on Wiley Boulevard Southwest. If you have an 01, 03, 06, 07 for the 52401 zip codes, if you will, throughout Cedar Rapids, you can just go northeast to the Northeast Station branch. That's off of 60th Avenue.
Wanted to pass this along. This is an email that I got from a viewer just a few minutes ago, just a little bit after 9 o'clock. He said, you know, he and his girlfriend went to eat at a Texas Roadhouse after they sandbagged yesterday, and they were very glad to see Texas Roadhouse was using bottled water and paper plates. So there you go. It just shows restaurants obviously trying to keep going with their business, but at least cater to the water conservation going on here in Cedar Rapids and many other communities as well.
We need the water there because they have the free peanuts.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to have your water for that. So,
but a lot of businesses dealing with that. So kudos to you for, you know, trying your best to conserve water, because at this point it is approaching. It's beyond approaching a critical stage. It's at a critical stage.
And also safety and health concerns. We've talked about the composition, what may be inside the water that is going really everywhere, it seems like sometimes, at least throughout downtown, Time Check, many of the other neighborhoods. For also tetanus shots, I believe we talked about this earlier. If you cannot remember the last tetanus shot you had, maybe consider getting one.
Right, especially if you've been near the floodwaters or plan to go back in and clean up. You know, maybe you got out before you touched water, but you know that water is going to leave behind some nasty things. So might not be a bad idea to get a tetanus shot. Here are some locations in Bowman Woods area. You can go to 6911 C Avenue Northeast. Also a place to get tetanus shots on the west side, on Edgewood Road Southeast, 2375 Edgewood Road Southeast.
And I also wanted to mention this. We talked quite a bit about Coralville and Iowa City to see if we'll be able to pull up the 500-year flood map once we get to that. And KCRG TV9's Mark Geary has been reporting from Coralville and most recently from Iowa City. We also have this on our website, kcrg.com. If you just go on to that, you can also find links which will show you everything. Now here's a look at the north side of the region. On the left side, you have First Avenue, which is Coralville, of course. You can see the Iowa, rather, snaking through the city. You can also see it going into Iowa City as well, north Dubuque Street, which, no surprise there, it's a very low-lying area and really the northern edge of the off-campus apartments. Now here looking south between Highway 6 and then Highway 1 through really the center part of the city along South Riverside Drive. Only 2 bridges are now open, Burlington and Benton throughout Iowa City. All the rest are closed for vehicle traffic.
I just got an email from a viewer who was saying, you know, our officials are going to tell citizens when they decide to close those bridges because people are going to want to decide, you know, which side of the river they want to be on. This is a good time to note. You need to probably decide that now because the waters are rising. They do have those people out there monitoring it, but once they close it, they will close that bridge down and probably very quickly.
And as you're looking here at this image on the flood of 2008 Iowa City 500-year flood map, that large kind of massive red you see there at the center of your screen, slightly to the left, that's the Iowa City Municipal Airport. Off of South Gilbert Street, that's just south of really the apex, the middle of the downtown district, and also points south. So if you're in those regions, you're probably already very familiar with where you need to be. If you need a specific block-by-block detailed map, and we have gotten some requests for those, we do have those on our website, kcrg.com. You can also download those off of a story that we do have on our website. So, because we're doing our best, very best back here to try to get all of the accurate information to you as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and just a reminder of why we're on the air here this Saturday morning when normally I think we'd be on local programming. You know, we're trying to do the best we can, as Chris was mentioning, to get this information out to you because obviously this flood is affecting so many people and so many families, businesses, communities that that is why we are continuing our coverage of the flood of 2008. And you know, we can't stress enough, if you can conserve water pretty much no matter where you live. I mean, that's pretty much what we're hearing. And one of the communities that we want to talk about right now, the community of Palo.
And we have gotten so many phone calls, so many emails from people in Palo. And if you're unfamiliar with Palo, it's a town of just under 1,000 people, just a few miles north of Hiawatha, but it is impossible to get into. I mean, F Avenue Northwest, you can't get in there. Shellsburg, you can't get in there. Can't come down from Vinton either. It's just one of those situations. And now I believe we're going to be going to a story that Katie Wiedemann took or filed yesterday. She was able to take a boat tour throughout Palo because we had gotten so many requests to see it. So now you'll get to see it for yourselves.
A rush of water on the Cedar River turned this close-knit community into a disaster area. City leaders say no one is allowed inside the city limits. You can't get there by car or foot, and rescue workers won't take you by boat. It's simply too dangerous.
We need to make sure that all of the homes have water out of them and that all appliances have been inspected by licensed electricians, plumbers, etc. before we can get electricity back to our community.
This is your chance to take a look. Basically every home is underwater. Same situation for gas stations, the bank, and the community center.
Homes are secure. We have the National Guard here around the clock at every entrance into Palo.
The only people allowed into Palo by boat are rescue crews and law enforcement. They made a special exception for our news camera to make sure citizens can get a look at their homes.
We know that we need to get this out to our citizens because they're all really concerned. I am too. I have a home just right over there.
She says in this desperate time, this is the best way to communicate with the people of Palo. She says she understands she's a victim as well. In Palo, Katie Wiedemann, KCRG TV9 News.
All right, that the community of Palo, obviously very troubled by this flood as well. And another community that we're gaining concern about, and obviously they are too, is Columbus Junction. And
that's further down. Once you get a bit further, that's in Louisa County, where as all the water seems to be kind of rushing towards. We also do have this story from Columbus Junction as well.
A levee 9 feet tall is the only thing standing between Columbus Junction and the water rising from the north. Mike Winters and his daughter are two of the volunteers helping build that barricade.
Compared to 93, the rate is coming up, I would say. The amount of people, the more help we've got from surrounding communities.
More than 80,000 sandbags stretch a half mile. But by the end of his interview, Winters wasn't sure that would be enough. He hurried off to tell the city water just started pouring out the storm drains downtown. People quickly began working to protect their businesses and move out anything they could. The record flood of '93 brought water to the base of this loading dock.
There was an engineer here yesterday, and he said that the levee probably won't hold that they build, but it's just going to slide off.
Many in this town of 2000 don't believe the city is prepared for this flood.
Like as tall as me, and like I feel like it's like people are going to have to swim to get places.
City officials expect a crest 5 feet higher than '93.
We think we're prepared, and all we can do now is kind of stand and watch and keep our fingers crossed and pray a little bit.
30 National Guard soldiers now block roadways to the river, and mandatory evacuations are already in effect for a dozen families.
They're moving out, but it's not quite up in my mom's house yet, so she's still there.
Columbus Junction sits in the worst spot possible for a flood. A half-mile to the north, the Iowa and Cedar Rivers meet and will eventually send down more water than this town has ever seen.
TV 9's Josh Hinkle reporting in Columbus Junction.
Now, we do have some new information we are expecting to come out within the top of the hour, 10 o'clock. There will be a press conference held out at Kirkwood Community College involving Lynn County emergency management officials as well as officials from Cedar Rapids. Also at that hour, inspectors will also be walking through some of the downtown businesses that will be available in downtown Cedar Rapids throughout the Skywalk, because later on, some business owners or the merchants may be available to get into their businesses to at least kind of see more in the situation.
Right, we talked with Doug Newman, if you've been joining us throughout the morning from the downtown district, and they've decided that there are a number of businesses, obviously, who, if they're located on the upper floors of buildings, were not affected by the flood waters themselves. Obviously, the power outage and the evacuation affected them, but today they are allowing access from 11 to 3 for people who need to get in and access their businesses and things like that. As Chris just mentioned, they are having the structural engineer check the safety of the buildings, because that's an issue as well. They're escorting people with the National Guardsmen, so you need to take your proper identification with you. And another email we got just a moment ago as well, something interesting that they pointed out, because we've been talking about this for the past, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes or so, is that, obviously, yes, they're allowing these people back into the upper floors to get the necessities, but the power is still out. It's dark down here. I mean, if you look at it at night, obviously some of these buildings, once you get inside, you're going to need a flashlight or something like that. So if you are a business owner and you're planning to come down, good idea to maybe grab that.
And again, the closer you are to where the Cedar River is supposed to be, the higher up the water may be as well. So bring whatever you can with you, but also make sure to bring your credentials or identification to prove that you do have a legitimate reason to be down there, because safety is an issue. They do want to keep the area as secure as possible, but again, that's coming up from 11 to 3, and you can
chamber,
well, inside of the you can enter through the U.S. Cellular Parkade and then be able to work your way into there. Again, if you do have a business that is accessible through the Skywalk in downtown Cedar Rapids.
All right, let's go to TV 9's Joe Winters in the Weather Lab, because we need an update on our weather for today. It looks great out there this morning, but that may not be the case throughout the rest of the day, right, Joe?
No, it looks like things could change, Ashley, as we head through the late part of the afternoon, especially overnight, and then again on Sunday. We talked about it last week. We have the potential to see some showers and thunderstorms that will be developing. As that occurs, a few of these storms may also turn severe. We're talking about that threat as we head through the late afternoon and evening in northern Iowa, back across Minnesota, and then ultimately as we head farther across portions of Iowa overnight tonight into Sunday. Heavy rains, a possibility. Right now it looks like the storm's a little more fast-moving than what we saw earlier in the week. With that, we're looking at a half-inch to 1-inch totals of rain, probably across a good share of eastern Iowa as we move through about the next 24 hours. There's a live look at First Alert Pinpoint Doppler radar. So right now, things are very, very quiet. And again, as we said, they're expected to stay that way as we work our way through the morning into the afternoon hours. It's late afternoon or evening when we'll see that first round of showers and thunderstorms as a possibility. Now, we'll run you through the weather. I also am going to update the river stage for you. We've been taking a lot of phone calls in the TV9 newsroom. People want to know what those river stages are, and we'll do that as well. And why don't we just begin with that? We'll go right to the river stages, where in Cedar Rapids now I'm happy to report that we're down to 28.8. We continue to see the fall. It's not where it needs to be, I understand that, but we do continue to see a fall as far as the river stage in Cedar Rapids. The latest information from the National Weather Service talks about that floods or the stage reaching 24.2 by tomorrow morning. So that would be about a 4.5-foot fall yet in the river level by tomorrow morning. So again, it is slowly retreating back. We've seen that from the pictures in downtown Cedar Rapids, and we will continue to see that water ultimately retreat back into the Cedar River as well. So right now at Cedar Rapids, we're at 28.8. A slow fall continues down to 24.2 by Sunday morning. The Iowa River, another major concern right now, still has, of course, yet to crest. The latest we have 30.09, that again coming in about 9 o'clock. It looks like that could be closer to 31 right now, about a tenth of a foot higher. Still looking for that same forecast crest near 33 feet on Tuesday, and honestly will probably crest a bit higher than that in some locations. The worry comes when the high waters, which have never been experienced before, move around different buildings, different topography, and that can cause that river to crest even a little bit higher. The Iowa River at Lone Tree looking for a crest this evening at 22.9. Currently we're sitting at 22.7 feet. The Iowa River at Columbus Junction, currently at 30.5, still looking for that 34-foot crest. That 34-foot crest, again, that occurring as we work our way into Monday morning. Now, the big reason we have the Columbus Junction crest before the Iowa City crest is because of the English River. It has been high. It is dumping into the Columbus Junction area. That's where kind of a bunch of rivers come together in the Lone Tree area. As a result, they will crest a bit sooner. They said we do not have to worry about a secondary crest in Columbus Junction for the water that's coming down from Iowa City because it will begin to spread out. So 34 feet by Monday morning is expected in Columbus Junction. Other rivers, we'll give you some updates in the north. Cedar Rapids, or Cedar River rather, in Charles City. 20.1 at last check. We look for it to fall below flood stage on Sunday. Cedar Falls is going to stay about where you're at. Slowly rise to remain steady through Sunday afternoon. Then you'll continue to fall. Waterloo expected the same thing. Right now you're at 18.6. Steady to a slow fall then to begin as we head through Sunday night. In Vinton, our river crested at 24.6. We're down to 20.7. Expecting to fall to about 19 feet by Sunday afternoon. Later next week, below flood stage in the city of Vinton. In Marengo, we stay about where we're at through Sunday, maybe even into Monday. Of course, dealing with record flooding once again. In Marengo, 20.6 currently, not going to be back into the flood stage region of 14 feet for some time to come. The Wapsie at Independence, 15, falling below flood stage on Tuesday. That means it will drop to less than 12 feet. And in Anamosa, we had that record crest of 26.2, currently at 25.8. The slow fall by tomorrow morning continues, down to about 23.7 feet by Sunday morning. Those of you along the Mississippi, fall continues, now closer to 20 feet, and that slow fall does continue. Do you need to have some information on the river stages? kcrg.com is the place to look. Flood of 2008. If you have some questions about how to clean things up, some safety rules, would like to see some aerial or pictures of the different flooded areas, all available for you on our website, as well as our live stream of our coverage on KCRG TV9. So you'll certainly want to take a look at that. What do we want to talk about now? Well, let's talk a little about the weather. And as we mentioned, it's fairly quiet. We gave you a look at live pinpoint Doppler radar earlier, give you a little wider view, and really the weather very quiet from Detroit all the way back across the northern plains, Minneapolis south to Springfield. We're looking at a weak area of high pressure that's really controlling our weather right now, and that area of high pressure keeps us quiet this morning. However, off to the west, we do have a disturbance in the atmosphere that is moving in our direction. The weak area of high pressure is replaced, and a cold front shows up in the northern plains. As that frontal system moves in, we'll see, first of all, ahead of it, a chance of some showers and storms. A few of those, again, may be severe, especially as we head through the later part of this afternoon into the overnight hours of tonight. Brief heavy rains, not out of the question, but it does not look like a widespread event. Half-inch to inch rain totals. The severe threat, again, is the thing we need to watch. It develops earlier today back in the northern plains. That's where we'll kind of watch these showers and storms fire up from, and then that will move down across portions of Minnesota as well as Iowa. So again, this is in effect for today and Sunday. So today and Sunday we are going to see that threat for some severe weather. Sunday's threat moves a little bit farther to the south, so northern Iowa gets out of that slight risk, but at least early into the afternoon hours in southeast Iowa, that threat will also exist on Sunday. As we take a look at Pinpoint Futurecast, we are starting with some sunshine. A lot of people out certainly helping out. That's good news to see that sunshine. It lets people work in good weather, as we saw yesterday. Later this afternoon, there comes a round of some showers and storms developing, but a little better chance as we head into the evening and overnight hours. Again, that best chance probably happening actually as we head into Sunday as well, especially in the southern part of the state with that cold front getting a bit closer. Then we do have a dry forecast for a period of time. Right now, a little bit of a pattern change. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at this point dry. With all the moisture in the low levels of the atmosphere, I hope this holds, but right now it does look dry, and we'll hold on to that hope. Highs are expected to stay in the 70s. Lows are expected to dip down into the 50s, so keep that in mind. Flood safety, we just can't stress this enough. For those of you that are dealing with flood waters or have those flood waters yet to crest, again, if you are advised to evacuate, we urge you to do so. We've seen evacuations happen in boats now in Cedar Rapids as the flood waters rose. You don't want to have that happen to you. You want to get out when you can, take your necessary belongings, and again, evacuate if you are asked to. We don't want you to drive through flood waters. We'll show you in a second some pictures from the Iowa DOT website that just shows what can happen to the road as this flood water, which is very, very powerful and very strong, moves across roadways, just kind of eats away at the road, eats away at the subsoil, and can cause roads to just crack, break, and flow off into the river. If your vehicle stalls, leave it immediately. It only takes about 6 inches to move a person and about 2 feet to float a car, so that could move very quickly in swift-moving waters. Don't let children play in water. This is for those areas that have not crested yet and those areas that have crested, especially now we're seeing the debris. You know, some of the pictures that we saw from Iowa City as well as Cedar Rapids this morning showing some of that debris. We've seen it up in Waterloo and Cedar Falls. There's also chemicals in that water. At times we are seeing some gas in the water. The smell, just indication that we are seeing some various things in the water that you don't want to be in, and you don't want to be in, much less your children. So no trying to bike in the floodwaters or things like that. You could get very, 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 very sick. Camping, parking near streams, not a good idea as well, especially some of those tributaries may not have yet crested in those areas. You have to be very, very careful, especially cautious at night. I know Chris and Ashley were talking about how dark it is in downtown Cedar Rapids, and boy, I'll tell you, at night, with all the lights shut off, it is very, very dark. No flashing lights, just a few emergency lights and railroad beacons on. Other than that, you really have to be cautious of floodwaters because you come up on them very, very quickly. And don't enter flooded basements. You have to wait until that water recedes, gets pumped out, so you can get down into those basements to be safe. And again, that's what we want you to do at this point. We want you to be safe. Another thing that we've been talking about for a period of time, and we've heard it shown, we've seen the maps, 100 or 500 year flood. What does that really mean? Well, it's really used by insurance companies in determining some flood hazard areas. It basically is the probability of a flood event in a given year. It does not mean that a 100-year flood occurs just once every 100 years or a 500-year flood occurs once every 500 years. What it does mean is that every year we have a 1% probability in that area in the 100-year floodplain of seeing a flood. A 0.2% probability annually for a 500-year flood in the 500-year floodplain. I also understand there are floodplains, 700, 1,000-year floodplains. Again, that information we just don't have right now, but it would just mean that that probability is much less for that to happen. But again, it's an annual probability of experiencing a disastrous flood. Now, that's again a look at live First Alert Pinpoint Doppler radar, and we do see that dry picture right now. We're certainly going to continue to monitor that as we work through the afternoon. Meteorologist Josh Baines and I will continue to follow that. Do want to show you some of the pictures that we showed you from the Iowa DOT earlier because, boy, they are just very, very dramatic. This is a picture of US 30 between LeGrand and Tama. Here's a picture coming up of Saylorville Lake. Des Moines also hit hard with some flooding. Flood warning remains in effect for southern areas of Polk County. This is again back off to the west, the Saylorville Dam also experiencing some flooding. The most dramatic pictures, I think, coming from Highway 150 in Vinton, where we just see the road being eaten away by the floodwaters. Just look as we scroll back through all the pictures. And these are available again at the Iowa DOT website. This is one of the pictures from Iowa 150 just north of Vinton. Absolutely unbelievable damage to that roadway. You can see the soil underneath the roadway is just gone. The road has been eaten away, almost chewed away by the floodwaters. The same is true again just near that road. We see the rushing waters that cause problems. It was because a road that was eaten away in central areas of Wisconsin that we saw Lake Delton up by Wisconsin Dells gone as well. Take a look at Iowa 150 again north of Vinton. As we can see, this were pictures earlier. Very, very Again, very, very dramatic pictures. Also, you wonder why Interstate 80 is closed. As you can see, east of Iowa City. Also, just a couple more pictures will show you. Again, Interstate 80 east of Iowa City. You wonder why it's closed, why we see that long detour. Well, that's why. The water is running over the roadways, and as a result, you cannot travel through those floodwaters. And again, we want to let you know that you need to be safe. Turn around, don't drown if you encounter some of those floodwaters. Our producer talking to me in my ear. I think it's time to go back to Ashley and Chris on the set. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have
Well, let's go back to Ashley and Chris on the set. Again, you guys are doing a great job today, and a lot of information, a lot of questions coming in I wanted to pass along from people wondering about what's going to happen with Cedar Rapids garbage pickup. What about their bills that have to be paid?
Right.
What about the homes that have no flooding yet are still in an evacuation area? These questions are with Dave Franzman. He's going to ask these at the news conference, so we should be able to get some answers to these questions as well, and a lot more calls coming into the newsroom right now.
Right, and people, of course, wondering about water. You know, obviously that's a big issue too. So,
absolutely.
Thanks,
Right.
Joe.
Joe Winters from the Weather Lab. Thank you very much, Joe. And it does take a complete team effort here at TV9. And we had Bruce and Beth working here long hours. We've all been here long hours. But we also appreciate everything that you've also contributed, as well as viewers, between the emails and the phone calls, to also kind of help lead us to what may be important for how all of this water also affects you. Now let's shift it down to Iowa City.
Right, and TV9's Mark Geary has been in Iowa City for us all morning today. I guess you could say you're trapped there because 380 is closed, Mark, but I understand you have moved to the University of Iowa now.
Yeah, we've been trying to bounce around as many places as we can this morning, and now we are right over by the Lindquist Center at the University of Iowa, where there is at least 100 people out here filling sandbags, and we're working to get that live picture back up for you. It is incredible to see them stacking them up in front of the Lindquist Center, and people here are telling me that inside the Lindquist Center is a lot of the university's technical equipment. It helps run some of their internet. And so you see a lot of young college students here. Of course, you know, everybody in college loves the internet. So I think they might even be more frantic because they don't want to see that go down. The sandbag wall right now is one of the highest ones I've seen. In certain sections of it, it almost looks to be about 10 feet high. And just there's this mountain of sand in the middle of all these people at pallet after pallet of sandbags. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people are not even really talking to each other. They're just kind of loading the sandbags up and just kind of frantically working here. Also, right near here is the library, where there's another massive sandbagging effort going on as well over there. And, you know, they do need more help and more volunteers down here. So if you are, you know, looking for something to do on a Saturday morning, come on down here.
No better place to be, right?
Yeah, this is one of the prime spots. There is a very well-coordinated effort going on here, and, you know, literally dump trucks are coming through with sand left and right, and just people keep filling the sandbags.
And Mark, we're looking at people sandbagging outside of the Coralville Marriott. I mean, sandbagging is a very physical thing that has to be done, and all these people working very, very hard.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. These are not, you know, little bags of sand. They're filling up, you know, pretty good-sized bags. Some of the ones that we have seen, you know, that the city workers will usually put together, you know, they have a set size, but I think they've run out of that size, and these are almost looking like almost the size of a kitchen trash bag. So they're pretty good size, and they're filling them up with sand, and, you know, you see people, they're out here sweating away, but, you know, I don't see anyone complaining. Most people have a smile on their face, to be honest, which is just incredible, and they just seem so determined to try and not let the water get up here and affect them. I think they've seen what has happened in other sections of Iowa, and they know that, you know, they really need to take this seriously, and they're just trying to prevent whatever damage they can here. And the wall is just incredible. And again, like I said, we're trying to get that live picture up here for you, and we will hopefully have that soon.
All right.
Mark Geary reporting live via Newsline 9 from Iowa City. Thank you, Mark.
All right. We want to talk a little bit about, you know, obviously he was talking about the sandbagging. We're seeing some of those pictures now of just the lines. I mean, it's an assembly line of sandbaggers. You see up and down, just lined up and down like that. Such an amazing effort to see.
And good to at least see the see the turnout. And here again, you're seeing this from Coralville off the First Avenue exit outside the Marriott there in Coralville. But then again, Iowa City, I mean, that's the kind of city where, you know, people sleep in on Saturdays. You know, it's a very social city. You know, maybe with everything that's going on, maybe some people who may not be directly affected. Hey, if you're looking for something to do with your ham and eggs this morning, you know, you are needed throughout many areas. As of course, the river is expected to crest in Iowa City on Tuesday morning at 33 feet. Hopefully, it will not get that high.
Yeah, and they've already stopped a bus service in Coralville. That is an announcement that was new this morning, so they stopped that. But then also something we want to reiterate that they have said over and over again about Iowa City is that, they want you to avoid driving in Iowa City. As we've been mentioning, there's only those two bridges that are open. The Burlington Street Bridge is still open, and I know there's one other bridge. Let me see here. The Benton Bridge is still open as well. But obviously, they're trying to urge people that if you do have to go around in downtown Iowa City, just walk or bike.